This is the final part of the readings, and in this particular section I want to focus in on Venus aspects. And there's quite significant Venus kind of aspects in your chart, and I also want to focus in on Venus returns, which have some very important trends over the next 2 to 3 years in terms of relationship for you. And I just want to also kind of go over some past issues to do with childhood that have basically been creating a bedrock of unconscious patterns for you in kind of relationships, and creating projections and transference and repeat patterns in relationship for you. Fundamentally to that is the Venus Saturn square here, and also I'm just going to show you in regards to other aspects that are turning up for you. So fundamentally, kind of with relationships we have, so I've already mentioned Venus squares Saturn. So essentially for you this is the same placement of Dustin Hoffman along with other placements. So when Dustin Hoffman was told that he wanted, and that was his dream, to be an actor, his aunt told him you can't be an actor, that you're not good looking enough. And this is something that inherently with Venus squares Saturn is a theme that you come across yourself, and maybe your feelings that you're not feminine enough, you're not good looking enough, and in much the same way as Dustin Hoffman, he had to overcome these obstacles, and you have the potential to do that as well. The other aspects here is Chiron in conjunct Mars, and this aspect here is essentially asking for what we want, or self-assertion, and this is the main challenge for you. So for people with Chiron Mars aspects, you might find yourself apologizing for outbursts of anger, self-assertion, or statements or desires, somehow feeling ashamed of these, and that's fundamentally comes from your childhood, where you kind of encountered a lot of suppression and feeling shame around asserting your own needs, and then finally Chiron in conjunct Saturn, healing the wound of the father. So these are fundamental issues that we're going to kind of address in this aspect of the reading. And also it's important to bear in mind that the fundamental blueprint of how relationships function is from our parents. So unconsciously or consciously, whether we like it or not, the first blueprint we get is how our parents interact. And if these interactions have been negative, then unconsciously we pick up those aspects and we carry them forward into relationships in the future. So bearing that in mind, I'm just going to look at kind of these in relation to your natal chart, and then I'm going to look at kind of trends going forward over the next 3 years. Fundamentally, I've seen here, because in 2021 you have an aspect between Mars and Venus in your Venus return. So this planet here is Venus. So we see here that's in the 10th house, which can show relationship in the area of career turning up for you around 2021. So I'll go into that more later as I kind of delve back into the past for you. So kind of going back and looking at the the Saturn Venus aspect, and that has the so what you have to understand about Venus square Saturn, it's one of the most challenging aspects with regard to love and happiness in your life. So you often feel that you are denied what you want most in life, and this can indicate kind of challenges to kind of basically kind of attaining that. So feelings of rejection, isolations, and loneliness that started at a very young age for you, and coupled with the influence of Chiron Mars and Chiron Saturn aspects, where you experience negative destructive expressions in your early childhood, this created, I suppose, feelings that you kind of were somehow not justified or not right in expressing and asserting yourself growing up. So for you, the link with being assertive or expressing your anger as destructive or somehow destructive, and you denied or suppressed this, and this is the early pattern and the early message you got from your childhood. But anger has a fundamental place in asserting who we are, because if we're threatened or if we want to assert ourselves and someone is interfering in that, a positive and healthy expression of anger is fundamental to kind of basically our ego and kind of having a healthy, kind of well-balanced ego. Okay, Janice, in this part I'm going to look at Chiron Mars aspects. And these aspects kind of represent fear of expressing your anger. So not only is this fear of your anger, it's also fear of our destructive nature. Because you're so unused to expressing the anger principle or the Mars principle and taking direct action regarding expressing and fulfilling your needs, kind of because this is like closeted deep in your unconscious, this then kind of grows in your shadow aspect, so you fear this destructive nature. So the challenge for you is to take direct action. So fundamentally, as I mentioned, the Mars principle is about self-assertion, direct action. However, you control yourself by not taking action, especially when confronted, by not expressing or making decisions. So here, if your capacity for Mars self-assertion or direct action is wounded, you may find it difficult to know what you want and tend to become inert, passively aggressive and resentful. So unconsciously you become ill as a way of controlling others, as this is an outlet for your unexpressed anger or to diffuse situations in which you have negatively escalated. These unexpressed feelings will then affect body functions, and our body and your body will react to you not expressing or asserting your needs. So the main challenge for you and the key to working through these aspects is maturity, self-awareness and self-love. If you let the criticisms and rejections take hold in your head, then these messages become reinforced and in some sense become self-fulfilling prophecies. So due to early criticism and harshness as a childhood, you will need to kind of set about reprogramming these negative self-images and replace them with a more positive recording in your own head. In short, erase that recording and replace it with positive message such as I am worthy of love. So once you project a more positive self-image and express yourself and lose the fear of being direct with regard to asking for your needs to be met, then you will gain the confidence to make and maintain relationships. You will then no longer feel the need to hide your affections and miss out on opportunities for love and romance. Now, bear in mind as well that because kind of as with kind of Mars aspects and Saturn aspects in your chart, kind of as with Dustin Hoffman, he had a second relationship, was divorced, and kind of through maturity and as he grew older, he kind of had a healthy second relationship. Now, I also want to just look at kind of aspects with your Venus returns. So if we go back to kind of what I kind of charted for you earlier on, you will see, here we go. So you're about to so most of January 2018 for you was represented by Venus in the 5th house, and this represented kind of issues to do with children. So you can see here there's a lot of planets here in much the same way as you had in your transiting. You had a lot of planets here in the 12th house. This represented a lot of issues to do with relationships, predominantly that focused around children. Okay, so here you can see Venus in your 5th, which is coming to an end, and you're going to find that as you move into 2019, then Venus will be focused on your own personal value systems and resources as represented by Venus in the 2nd house. So you can see in both kind of instances, Pluto was here and Venus was here. So this is the male principle, and this is facing fears and dealing with children regarding these fears. So again, with the second house, kind of here in 2019, most of this year will predominantly be focusing on kind of improving and kind of bettering your kind of financial resources. And this will be quite a successful year in those areas. The other thing that I see here happening in terms of relationship is a direct confrontation between you and your mother. And there's going to be a lot of kind of in the coming years, a lot of assertion, self assertion, and direct kind of confrontations that you're going to have to address with regard to your mother, as represented here between the moon and Mars. Now, moving onwards, kind of if you see here, kind of December 2019, and this will be current in 2020, the focus will then move back to children and issues to do with kind of travel and areas to do with kind of partnerships. But here, because you have Neptune in the seventh house, perhaps 2020 is not a good year for signing contracts and developing relationships. I would see, with regard to issues to do with a relationship, 2021, as represented here towards the end, 2021, 2022, is a better time for relationships that will have more meaningful and lasting kind of effect in your life. So in total, you can see here Venus to Mars. There will be a link between career and relationship developing, and this could be quite a positive relationship moving on into the future. But as with the the Saturn Venus aspects in your natal chart, there has to be a lot of preparatory work. It's almost like you have to get the circumstances right in your personal life and security wise before you kind of feel safe with venturing into relationships.